Let's talk Tanya for the 16th day of the first Adar. So today we begin chapter 30, and we're in the middle of the larger topic of Timtum Halev, how to deal with emotional unresponsiveness, numbness, an inability to generate emotions, excitement, feeling for holy endeavors, for God, for Torah, mitzvahs, Judaism, etc. And in the previous chapter, chapter 29, we took a deep plunge, you might want to say an unpleasant plunge, into our lowliness, our association with the God, with the animal soul, our past indiscretions, etc. In this chapter, chapter 30, the Alter Rebbe is going to take a little of a different approach. Again, we're still on the topic of crushing the ego, but this chapter apparently is coming to address what seems to be a flaw in the efficacy of the method discussed in the previous chapter, which is, in the previous chapter, we were talking about our lowliness. That's great. I'm lowly. But you know what? I'm lowly, but so is everyone else around me. Everyone else around me also, their identity is also that of the animal soul. People around me also, they've made mistakes. In fact, as lowly as I am familiar with many people, lowlifes, who are much lower than me. So how effective is the ego crushing going to be, talking about my lowliness, if that's a condition that's pretty much universally shared? For better or for worse, we tend to judge and to evaluate, to assess ourselves based on how we are relative to the people around us. And if I'm just part of the gang, I'm part of the crew, everyone is just like me, how crushing is that going to be to my ego to say, hello, you're a human being, and that comes along with the lowliness, which is there for every human being. So in today's Tanya, in this chapter, which is going to take us quite a few days to cover, the Alter Rebbe is going to come and to counter that and say, based on a teaching in the Mishnah tells us, Veheve shfal ruach b'fnei kol ha'adam, which means that one is supposed to have a lowly spirit before every other person. Or in simple words, that means I'm supposed to be humble before everyone, which means I look up at everyone. I do not consider myself to be better than or superior to any other person in this world. Now, that's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Many of us have learned that Mishnah in the Ethics of Our Fathers. We learn it in the summer, and we learn it, and we nod our heads. We're like, yeah, we're supposed to be humble before every person. We're not supposed to look down at anyone. And then automatically we make some assumptions in our head. Well, does that mean actually I'm supposed to consider myself to be inferior to every other person? Probably not. It probably means that I should behave in that way. I should behave in a humble fashion. And does it mean every single person, even that person, that lowly person? Probably doesn't apply to that person. The Alter Rebbe says, no, when the Mishnah says that we have to look at ourselves as humble before every person, look up at every person, and not condescend or look down at anyone, it means every single person. And it's not only about a behavior, it's truly the way we're supposed to feel in our interactions with other people. Now, how is that possible? Objectively, it would seem that there are people who are a lot lowlier than I am. So to understand this, the Alter Rebbe will introduce another teaching of our sages, also on Pirkei Avos. Our sages tell us, which means do not judge your fellow until you have arrived in his or her place. Which means that everyone has unique life experiences. Everyone has a unique past. We don't know what kind of tests other people encounter, either by virtue of their interactions and because of their life circumstances. The example that Rebbe gives is of another person who their work is in middle of the city. They're Times Square. That's where their work is, and they're there. Their eyes see, their heart desires. So some people, their circumstance causes them to have more tests than other people. That's number one. And number two, there's the personality. Not everyone's Yetzer Hara, not everyone's evil inclination is the same. Some people have more passionate natures, and they're more prone to desires than others. So I can't judge another person. Yes, I see that another person has failed, but I have no idea what I would do if I was in that person's position, because I don't share that person's life circumstances, and I also don't share that person's unique and individual temperament. So therefore, I can't judge that person. I can't look down at that person. Now, does this mean that we're actually excusing the other person? I see another person, the other person is doing a sin, doing something highly inappropriate, and I'm supposed to say, well, considering that person's circumstances and considering the person, their life experience and the various traumas that they have, what can I say? They couldn't have done otherwise. They're excused. Is that what the Alter Rebbe is saying over here? We'll find out the answer to that question in tomorrow's Tanya.